Cam Newton, Eric Reed, and a player with the nickname of Doo-Doo. These are just some of the top remaining NFL free agents. What is going on, guys? Wade here with Tony's Cat Gaming and Sports, and here we are with episode number 2 of our sports podcast, and today it's going to be the top 10 remaining NFL free agents. So, starting it off at number 10 is going to be Devonta Freeman, running back, 28 years old. He was a 4th round pick for the Atlanta Falcons out of Florida State. He signed a 6-year extension in 2017, big extension, and then he was abruptly cut after 2 poor campaigns heading into the 2020 offseason. His best years were from 2015 to 2017, where he averaged 1,000 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns, and 50 receptions to go along with 450 receiving yards through the air. This guy was a beast, and you would know this, especially if you played fantasy football, as you either were really stoked when you were able to get him, or you were pretty upset because someone took him from your team, a player that you had your eye on. Unfortunately, though, durability has always been his primary issue, as he only played in 2 games in the 2018 season. He's missed plenty of games before throughout his career years, of course, with concussions and shoulder issues and problems of that nature. Although he did play in 14 games last year, he only mustered 656 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns with a 3.6 yards per carry. So sure, the Falcons' offensive line wasn't very good, but still, to only average 3.6 yards per carry and playing 14 games, it was not a very good year for him on the ground. However, he was productive receiving, though, as he was able to tally 59 receptions, 410 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So he's always been a great PPR guy. Really, whenever it was Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman in that backfield, the Atlanta Falcons were one of the best whenever they had a great 2 running back tandem. So, unfortunately, he hasn't been able to produce like the Falcons wanted. So, best case scenario, he becomes a receiving back, as he has always had great success, obviously, and this could potentially prolong his career. You look at guys like Dion Lewis and James White and Bilal Powell. These guys all have that PPR capability, that receiving down capability, and they've been productive enough. So if he's able to do that, he probably won't be able to get as injured, as banged up, as since he's not going to be that first, second down guy. So comes in on 3rd down and produces. Another player, Duke Johnson. He could be exactly like him. And he's only 28 years old, so he still has plenty left in the tank. So optimal teams will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Tennessee Titans. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're going all in this year with Tom Brady, and they traded for Rob Gronkowski. Of course, he actually came out of retirement to sign with the Buccaneers. So why not bring in Devonta Freeman to pair with Ronald Jones, as Ronald Jones has also been kind of an incumbent starter. So if I was Devonta Freeman, I would definitely hit up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then, of course, the Tennessee Titans with Derrick Henry. Now Dion Lewis isn't there anymore. There is a potential for a receiving back. And the Titans, they had a great offense last year. Can they continue that? I don't know, but Devonta Freeman could definitely help them in their situation for sure. Alright, so player number 9 is going to be Damon "Snacks" Harrison, defensive tackle. He is 32 years old. So a little bit about him. He was undrafted out of William & Penn in the 2012 NFL Draft. He signed with the New York Jets for his first 4 seasons, then the Giants, before being traded mid-2018 season to the Detroit Lions. And then the Lions released him, freeing up $6.7 million in cap space after a down year. So Damon Harrison, his best years were from 2015 to 2018, when he averaged 80 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. So remember, though, he's a different defensive tackle, so run stuffing is more important than his sack count. And obviously, with the name of Snacks, he's going to be a big boy up there holding that middle right there. So running on him was not a very smart option. 2019, though, was one of his worst statistical seasons since 2014, as he had 49 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. The Lions were also one of the worst defenses in the league, but it doesn't help that Snacks wasn't the guy that he used to be. So they missed huge production from, of course, their go-to guy, their veteran guy in Damon Harrison. And, of course, that's just going to affect everyone else around them. So best case scenario, he goes to a team on a 1-year prove-it deal to show he still might have a bit left in that 32-year-old tank of his. Some of these optimal teams could be the Carolina Panthers, Jacksonville Jaguars, and even the Cleveland Browns, who these teams all allowed over 5 yards per carry last year. So this would really be a good test for Damon Harrison to see how much he has left in the tank. Does he have enough to help and succeed with those teams and lower that yards per carry that they gave up last year? So if he's able to do that, maybe get a 1-year deal and just keep taking 1-year, 2-year deals until he eventually is just going to have to hang it up. Moving on to player number 8, Jason Peters, left tackle. He is 38 years old. So a little bit about Jason Peters. He was undrafted out of Arkansas in the 2004 NFL Draft. He signed with the Buffalo Bills and then played with them for 5 years before being traded in the offseason to the Philadelphia Eagles in 2009. On March 11th, 2019, he signed a 1-year, $5.5 million contract. He's now a free agent. So, of course, whenever you think of Jason Peters, the first thing that comes to mind is Philadelphia Eagles left tackle, as he has been there through thick and thin, protecting the left side, the blind side of all those quarterbacks they've had. So, unlike practically every other position in the NFL, it is extremely hard to find stats for offensive linemen. So, of course, offensive linemen, their only stats are pretty much penalties, pancakes, allowed quarterback hits, sacks, things of that nature. So what's the best way to determine productivity? That would be PFF grades, so Pro Football Focus, which compiles tons and tons of data to determine how effective each player is at their position. And of course, Pro Bowl and All-Pro honors are also another way to grade who is still a star or one of the better players at each of their position. So PFF grades him have been from 80 to about his peak, which is 92, around 2011, 2014. That's really when he kind of put it all together where he really clicked. Last year he graded out at an 82.4. So he was still solid enough, and really you wouldn't think he'd had that problem, that big of a problem trying to find a deal, especially a 1-year deal. When last year he only signed $5.5 million, so you think he'd get a 1-year $4.5 million deal, but for some reason he just hasn't been able to get anything. He's a 9-time Pro Bowler and first-team All-Pro in 2011 and the 2013 season, and like I said, he was a staple of the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line since 2009, protecting the most important man on that team, the quarterback. He also won the Super Bowl with the Eagles as well in the 2018 season, and he is almost pretty much a Hall of Famer, but how much left is in that tank? So best case scenario, he continues to sign 1-year deals and does everything he can to mentor young offensive linemen until he decides to hang them up. He's always been relied upon, and you can count on him. His 2018 season, he had a down year. PFF graded him at about a 71, but for him to come back at age 38 and get an 82, you should definitely be able to sign with. There should be plenty of suitors for him, I would think. I would definitely, if we didn't have Laramie Tunsil on the Texans, I'd be fine giving him a 1-year, 2-year deal just to see what he can do. Now, of course, we don't need to worry about that. Optimal teams, honestly, any team who wants to slowly bring along a rookie or second-year left tackle, you can't do any worse than Jason Peters. I mean, this guy is probably going to be in the Hall of Fame as a left tackle. So I would definitely look at bringing him in if I was a GM or head coach who took a left tackle in the second, third, even first round, just so we don't throw him in there to begin. So moving on to player number 7, that's going to be Mr. Everson Griffin, defensive end, and he is 32 years old. So a little bit about Everson. He was drafted 4th round out of USC in the 2010 NFL draft to the Vikings. He has played his entire career with the Vikings, and he signed a 6-year, $75 million contract in 2017 before voiding his final 3 years, as the Vikings were going to cut/release him. So, a little bit about Everson. Since 2012, Everson has only had 2 years. He hasn't reached 8 sacks in the season. In 3 of those seasons, he reached double digits. So he's always been productive enough to get to the quarterback and rush and get those quarterback hits that you always like. He also has been able to average 40 combined tackles to go along with 20 quarterback hits. So what is the next most important stat besides sacks? That's going to be quarterback hits, because that's how close he was to either sacking the quarterback or finishing through and hitting him after the ball was released. So just a second too late. So quarterback hits are extremely, extremely important in my opinion. He's still extremely productive following his 2019 campaign, as he was able to rack up 8 sacks, 41 tackles, and 24 quarterback hits. So he still did a great job. So for him to not been able to find a team to use him or to utilize him has been pretty odd. He still has plenty left in the tank, honestly. I mean, especially after his 2019 campaign. You're going to get 8 sacks and 24 quarterback hits? Sure, yeah, come on. The only problem was he signed a very, very massive deal, and the Vikings, their cap strapped. Of course, they gave Kirk Cousins a huge, huge deal, and then they signed him to another 2-year extension, Kirk Cousins. So they just didn't have enough money to move around, and they decided to part with Mr. Griffin, unfortunately. Best case scenario, though, he takes a short-term deal with a team with high playoff expectations and does his best to finally become a Super Bowl champion. The Vikings, for the past couple years, have been playoff contenders. Super Bowl contenders, maybe if they were able to put it all together. I just don't know if Kirk Cousins has enough in him to lead a team to the Super Bowl. And they traded Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills. So now there goes one of your best wide receivers. You lose out Everson Griffin. They did bring in Justin Jefferson, wide receiver Justin Jefferson out of LSU, to help replace Stephon Diggs. But rookie wide receivers coming to the NFL, always hit or miss whether they're going to succeed that first or second year. Optimal teams for Mr. Griffin would be the Houston Texans, of course, Green Bay Packers, and Seattle Seahawks. All those 3 teams have huge playoff expectations every year, and of course want to go to the Super Bowl, as the Green Bay Packers were just a game away from getting to the Super Bowl. The Texans were a couple games away, of course, and the Seattle Seahawks a couple games away as well. The Seahawks are always going to be in the mix, and the Texans, who really knows what we're going to be this year. But it won't hurt to have Everson Griffin coming off that line to pair with J.J. Watt. That would give us 2 really old defensive ends, but if you're going to try to win a Super Bowl, might as well do it now. So we'll see what happens. Definitely someone to keep your eye on, because I think he's going to be more of a contributor than many people believe, and they're definitely missing out on him right now. Moving on to player number 6. That's going to be old man Delanie Walker, tight end, 36 years old. Oh, now this guy, he brings back memories for sure. So I'll get into that in just a minute. So a little bit about him, though. He was drafted 6th round by the San Francisco 49ers in the 2006 NFL Draft. He played with the 49ers from 2006 to 2012, and then Tennessee Titans from 2013 to 2019. And then he signed a 2-year, $17 million contract extension in 2018 before being cut to save $6.4 million against the cap. So Mr. Delanie Walker, he's one of my favorite tight ends to watch since coming over to the Titans. Delanie Walker exploded and became a dominant force for the Titans offense. So a couple years back, I was playing fantasy and I noticed Delanie Walker. He was having a great year. So I picked him up and wanted to know more about him. I was shocked with these stats he had with the 49ers. So get this. In his 7-year career with the 49ers, Delanie Walker averaged 17 catches, 200 yards, and 1 touchdown. throughout those 7 years. So this is now with the Tennessee Titans, excluding his past 2 injury-riddled seasons with the Titans. His first 5 years with them, he averaged 72 receptions, 831 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So what the heck were the San Francisco 49ers doing with this man? Why were they not targeting him? Why were they not throwing it to him? Was it the system they were in? I don't know. I'm going to have to go back and try to figure it out. But I was just mind blown whenever I saw these stats. Because whenever I think of Delanie Walker, I think of Tennessee Titan. I think of a beast. And how he was able to stick around with the 49ers for 7 years, piling up that, I'm not really sure. Because he just wrecked it. Unfortunately, though, injuries have limited him to 1 game in 2018 and 7 games in 2019. So, unfortunately for the Titans, he signed that 2-year, $17 million contract extension and only played in 9 games. So, that pretty much made him expendable. Also, mainly because Jonnu Smith emerged last year, making Delanie Walker easy to be cut. So Jonnu Smith, he was, I want to say, like a 3rd or 4th round pick in the 2018 NFL draft. Did okay for his rookie year, but really exploded last year whenever he finally was able to take over. Delanie, he's probably going to have to take a 1 or maybe 2-year deal before calling it quits in a successful second half career. So optimal teams would be the Arizona Cardinals, of course, to pair, might as well get with Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, Kenyon Drake, Larry Fitzgerald. Might as well bring in Delanie Walker and see just how far this offense can go. That would be really exciting. Of course, the New England Patriots, they could desperately use a tight end, a safe check valve for Jarrett Stidham or Brian Hoyer. Who knows what the Patriots are going to do back there at quarterback, but you could always use a dependable guy like that. And what about the Dallas Cowboys? How would we like to see Delanie Walker on the Dallas Cowboys? I think that would be pretty cool. That would give Dak another extremely reliable, real-life receiver to pair with Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb. That offense really would have no excuses not to succeed and make it to the playoffs. The Cowboys with Delanie Walker would be pretty stacked. But, of course, this is assuming Delanie Walker is healthy and doesn't have old man legs anymore. So, of course, we're not really sure how healthy Delanie Walker is, but I would definitely kick the tires on him if I was one of those 3 teams. Moving on to player number 5, that's going to be Logan Ryan, cornerback, and he is 29 years old. So, Mr. Logan Ryan, he was drafted 3rd round by the New England Patriots in the 2013 NFL Draft. He spent his first 4 seasons with the Patriots, and then the last 3 with the Tennessee Titans. And then with the Tennessee Titans, he signed a 3-year, $30 million contract in 2017 before becoming a free agent this past offseason. So a little bit about Mr. Logan Ryan. He's best described, in my opinion, as an aggressive, leave-it-all-on-the-field cornerback. Logan was a steal for the Patriots in the 3rd round, and a reason why they were able to win 2 Super Bowls during his 4-year career. As a member of the Patriots, he amassed 13 interceptions, 2.5 sacks, and 243 combined tackles. Although he wasn't as consistent as you'd like, as he did get burned and displayed some weaknesses from time to time, he was still good enough and was reliable enough to give the Patriots that little bit of defense that they needed to continue to be that threat that they've always been. As a member of the Titans, though, he collected 4 interceptions, which all came last year, 8.5 sacks, and 251 combined tackles in his 3-year career. Unfortunately, he allowed a league-worst yards and touchdowns in slot coverage last year. So he's not as quick as he used to be, obviously. So moving to the outside and not relying him as the number 1 option is going to be an important step for both himself and the team that wants to bring him in. So he's going to have to look at himself and realize, I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm not going to be able to play slot anymore. But moving to outside, which can save his career a little bit and might be able to bring that tenacity back that he used to have as a 3rd round pick. There have been some rumors with him, though. So there's rumors of him signing with the Jets, and they are rampant. Logan Ryan even said this, the Jets make a ton of sense, but I am open for business. So I pretty much believe he's going to sign with the Jets, and so does everyone else. But it was also reported that he wanted more than $10 million from the Dolphins. That hasn't been confirmed yet. Most likely, though, Logan Ryan will sign with the Jets to help bolster their secondary. As the Jets, they could use a lot of help defensively. And Logan Ryan, already being a 2-time Super Bowl champion, he can, more or less chase the money rather than chase the career. So we'll see what happens. That's definitely a player to be on the be looking out for, to see where he lands, because there is a lot of speculation regarding him and the New York Jets. Moving on to player number 4, that's going to be Larry Warford, offensive guard, 29 years old. So this guy actually just became a free agent a week or two ago. So a little bit about him. He was drafted in the 3rd round by the Detroit Lions in the 2013 NFL Draft. He spent his first 4 seasons with the Lions, then his last 3 with the New Orleans Saints. And then he signed a 4-year, $34 million contract in 2017 before being released to clear almost $8 million in cap space. So Mr. Larry Warford, once again, linemen don't exactly have stats, so we have to rely on other means to check this man out. So he's been to the Pro Bowl the past 3 seasons and was on the NFL All-Rookie team in 2013. So why exactly did the Saints move on from him then, if he's been to the Pro Bowl the 3 years he's been with the Saints? Mainly because he became expendable when the Saints selected Cesar Ruiz in the 1st round in this year's draft. So one good thing about the Saints is they have a very good offensive line. One bad thing is that makes any and other offensive lineman expendable when you spend a 1st round pick on an offensive lineman like that. And by releasing him, they were able to clear $7 million in cap space. And it came from a position of strength for the Saints. So unfortunately for him, there really wasn't much he could do. So he graded out, though, as PFF's number 30 guard out of 82 participants. So that's not too bad. The Bears, as well as the Houston Texans, are said to be interested in him. Me being a Texan fan, I would love to see the Texans sign him to maybe a 3-year deal with about $7 million per season. That would be just really, really nice. And this would finally give the Texans a dependable O-line since the Matt Schaub era. Which, boy, when you think Matt Schaub, that is a long time ago. Peak Matt Schaub was 2011, 2012, when we had Dwayne Brown, Wade Smith, Chris Myers, Ben Jones, Eric Winston. Golly, that offensive line was stacked. And now it was in shambles, and now it's gotten quite a bit better. You got Laramie Tunsil out in the left tackle. You got Max Sharping at left guard. You have viable center Nick Martin, and your right tackle is Titus Howard. So that right guard spot is the only spot that you could use an improvement in, and that was being filled by Zach Fulton right now. But bringing in Larry Warford, a Pro Bowl right guard, anytime you can get a Pro Bowl caliber player, you should at least do your best to research him and look at him and bring him in. One negative about him is that his pass blocking has deteriorated just a little bit, but he's still a really good run blocker. And in my opinion, everything comes from running. If you can't run the ball, if you can't establish that run, it doesn't matter how well you do passing. And you can always use rollouts and play action to help with offensive linemen who struggle in pass blocking, of course. So bringing in Larry Warford, whose run blocking is still very good, would definitely be a huge boost to this Texans offensive line. And I would be extremely excited to see how Deshaun would do with that type of offensive line. So we'll see if the Texans decide to bring him in. I really hope they don't become stingy with their money. But who knows? We got Mr. Bill O'Brien running the show. So he's not really the most reliable person when it comes to that. So moving on to player number 3. That's going to be Eric Reed, safety, defensive back. He is 28 years old. So a little bit about Mr. Eric. He was drafted 1st round by the San Francisco 49ers in the 2013 NFL Draft. He spent his first 5 seasons with the 49ers, then his last 2 with the Carolina Panthers. He signed a 3-year, $21.7 million contract in the 2019 offseason before being abruptly cut. this offseason, which was extremely, extremely surprising whenever we got the notifications that Eric Reid had been released by the Panthers. But just how surprising was it? Let's find out. So before we get to there, Eric Reid, he was extremely productive in his time in the Bay Area, amassing 10 interceptions with 318 combined tackles. Unfortunately, with the Panthers, his coverage skills were lacking, but he had, get this, a career-high 130 tackles last year. 130 tackles from a safety. That is just outstanding. That is mind-boggling. That's linebacker numbers right there. Now, why did he have that many tackles? Well, the Panthers weren't really that great of a defensive team. And of course, if his cover skills are lacking, he's going to give up a pass and then make the tackle. So it's good that he has that tackling ability, but you don't really want to see that many tackles, of course. So a little bit about Eric Reid, though, also. He has been extremely involved in expressing human rights issues on and off the field, leading some to believe the reason his free agency a couple years ago was rather cold and stagnant, as this guy was, like I said, extremely productive with the 49ers. And then he decided to protest and kneel during the national anthem, and of course, that ruffled up a ton of feathers. So there was that whole situation regarding that. So who knows really what was going on behind the scenes, but that's what some people believe, of course. And, stats don't always lie. He's also the older brother of Texans safety Justin Reid, and he has had contact with the Texans in April about potentially signing with the team, but as of today, May 15th, nothing has been heard yet or confirmed, so I'll, of course, keep everyone updated on that. He's going to need to sign a 1 or 2 year deal to show he can still cover and that he still belongs in the NFL. I, of course, would once again love to see the Texans go out and try to bring him in and pair him with his brother. Justin and Eric, if you watch anything behind the scenes, like on Twitter and on Facebook, just non-football related, they're always working out. They're always very active together, active in the community, like to work each other. So I would love to see them bring in Eric Reid, who's also a veteran in his own rights. And the Texans have a very young defensive back core with Lonnie Johnson and Justin Reid and a couple other players. So having that veteran presence to pair with Bradley Roby, another veteran, would really be extremely well. And teams that claim they want to get tougher should bring this hard-hitting safety in. I mean, it's a no-doubter. Every team wants to preach about this year we're going to be tougher, we're going to be stronger. How do you do that? You bring in players who showcase their toughness, who showcase their strengths. That is going to be Eric Reid. You put him out as a box safety, he's going to be all over the field, he's going to be tackling, he's going to be there, he's going to give it all out on the line. I would absolutely love to see Eric Reid paired with Justin Reid in this backfield. That would be extremely, extremely great. So moving on to player number 2, Mr. Jadeveon Clowney. Oh, this is going to be a good one. Oh, so many emotions going through me right now with Mr. Clowney. So, he is a defensive end / outside linebacker. Only 27 years old. So still one of the youngest free agents remaining. So a little bit about him. He was drafted first overall by the Houston Texans in the 2014 NFL Draft. He spent his first 5 seasons with the Texans and his last with the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, he was traded by the Texans to the Seahawks, and it looked like one of the more lopsided trades, but now, revisiting it, it doesn't really look that bad on paper for the Texans anymore, or the Seahawks, really. You just really would have wished the Texans got more better draft picks, honestly, that's all. But neither team really got hurt or produced because of it. So, of course, he was franchise tagged in 2019, and he made about $16 million last year before officially becoming a free agent. Also, shout out to my brother, Kyle. He shares a birthday with my brother on February 14th. And then this player's nickname, Jadeveon Clowney's nickname, is Doo-Doo. So, That's according to Pro Football Reference. So, Clowney, what is going on here, buddy? Why is your nickname Doo-Doo? Please contact me and let me know. I always called you JD, but, whatever. Mr. Jadeveon Clowney, where to begin? As a Texan fan, like I said, I don't really know how to feel about him. He was never given a set position with the Texans, which I think really hurt him at the end of the day, as he bounced from defensive end to linebacker. Also, he's not a huge sack guy. Although in 2017 and 2018, he had back-to-back 9-sack seasons, most people look at sacks, fan-wise. So they're going to see the 9 sacks and say, well, that was good, but why couldn't he get 12? Why couldn't he get 15? That's mainly because this guy is a beast when it comes to run defense, though. If you ever watched him with the Texans or the Seahawks, anytime there was a running play, he would just come out of nowhere just like J.J. Watt would, and he would stop that running back right in its shoes. Now, he just never was quick enough, didn't have that pass rush ability to get to the quarterback, which is no big deal. But if he wants that big money, that $22 million money, that is where the sacks are going to come from. So that is the only problem, is that he wants sack money when he's not producing sack money. He's producing run stuff money. Run stuff money is going to be closer to $15 million, because they're not, those aren't as game-changing plays as a sack is. You get a sack, you're going to have a 20% chance to get a fumble. Maybe not 20, maybe more like 10 to 15%. But that's still better than the 1% chance that obviously run stuff gets. So this gets overlooked. Like I said, run stuffs get overlooked all the time by fans, because of course, whenever you got J.J. Watt on your team who gets 15 sacks a season and Jadeveon Clowney gets 8, hey, what's up with that? Where's all this going through? He's supposed to be in the number 1 pick. Why isn't he producing the sacks that we want? And it was mainly because, like I said, he didn't have a set position. So he was all right for the Seahawks, as he did have 2 defensive touchdowns. I don't think he had any defensive touchdowns for the Texans. But once again, man, injuries limited him to only 13 games. This, unfortunately, is Jadeveon Clowney's biggest problem, as injuries and him go together like peanut butter and jelly. There's not a better combination, as he's only played 16 games once, and he's had a surgery every offseason. So once again, he wanted $20+ million a year, but he didn't produce sack money. And then he hasn't played a full NFL game season but once. Then he's had a surgery every offseason. All these factors are going to contribute to that money that he wants. So like I said, he was wanting to get around $22 million at the beginning of this year's offseason. He's reportedly dropped his asking price to around $17 million, supposedly. If I was him, if I was Clowney, I would look for a 2-year dollar contract around $30 million. That would still leave him at being 29 years old, still in his prime, assuming injuries don't just absolutely devastate him. He's got another $30 million to his name, and he could potentially get another 3-year contract and just keep racking up money that way. So that would probably be what I would do if I was him. That would be his best way to do anything. If he gets a 2-year contract, maybe he can get $17 million guaranteed, or maybe he can get $20 million guaranteed, which still isn't bad. Also, if I was him, I would look at doing bonuses in my contract. Maybe if I get to 8 sacks, give me $2 million. So there's got to be a way to get to his $22 million contract, or get to his $22 million asking price that he purportedly wanted. But he's gonna have to wiggle around and understand that he's just the market isn't what they want from him. I wouldn't mind seeing him back on the Texans, actually. He's still young, like I said, only 27 years old. To pair with J.J. Watt, once again, that would be really, really nice. It would really be funny, honestly. This would be really funny if they were able to bring Clowney back on a much, much cheaper deal than what he wanted as a Houston Texan. Another team that would be a really good destination for him would be the Arizona Cardinals. Once again, the Arizona Cardinals, since they traded for DeAndre Hopkins, they've got Kyler Murray on a young contract, obviously. They've got young running backs in Kenyon Drake, who's not making much at all. They got Larry Fitzgerald. They might as well just throw it all at the wall and see if they can get to the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl. They could even give Clowney a 4-year deal if they really wanted to. Now, I wouldn't do that, of course. I'd still stick to a 2, maybe 3-year deal. But they do have the option to give Clowney a 4-year deal, improve that offense, improve that defense, and just see how much magic Kyler Murray has in himself. So that would also make a very good destination for him as well. And that brings us to, you guessed it, player number 1 who is still available in the offseason, Mr. Cameron Newton. Quarterback, 31 years old. Man, it seems crazy that he's 31 years old now. Because whenever he was at his best at Auburn, I remember watching him and just being amazed at how great he was. So let's dive into his career. So he was drafted first overall by the Carolina Panthers in the 2011 NFL Draft. He has spent his entire career with the Panthers, and he signed a 6-year, $118 million deal in 2015 before finally being released this past offseason, as he had only 1 year left. So, kind of stinks for Cam that he had just 1 year left, and he wasn't able to stick around one more year just to finish it off. But, it is what it is. So, this is now the second former number 1 overall pick that still remains unsigned. Just like Clowney, though, Cam has been littered with injuries. As I'm sure y'all have all heard about it, whether they've been on-field and off-field both, as he's had instances where, with his car, where he got hit in the back where he got, hit in his vehicle and he had a back injury. He's had ankle injuries. He's had shoulder injuries. So this man has just been through it all. But at his peak, he was one of the most fun and prolific quarterbacks to watch since entering the league out of Auburn. So these are what he's amassed so far. He's got 29,000 passing yards to go along with 182 passing touchdowns, which is pretty good. On the ground, he has been just, if not even more impressive as a quarterback, of course, with 4,800 rushing yards and 58 touchdowns. He's the monster that quarterbacks have now become that you'd like to see. The Deshaun Watsons, the Lamar Jacksons, the Kyler Murrays, the Josh Allens. This guy, Cam, slowly paved the way for those guys to come into the league and show off that you don't just need to be a pocket passer. You can be both and still be extremely successful, if you're able to stay healthy, of course. So, of course, he has that one MVP to his name, and he did lead the Panthers to Super Bowl 50, where he ultimately lost to the Denver Broncos of Peyton Manning. And since that season, the Panthers really haven't been able to get back to who they were. They really just took everything by storm and just really just hit it on all cylinders, kind of like the Falcons did in 2017, where they really just exploded onto the scene and no one was really able to catch up to them. Can he still be a productive quarterback? Yes, Cam Newton can still be a productive quarterback. I had to think about it for a little bit, but he can still be productive. Now, this is if and only if his shoulder surgery is fine, that his shoulder is okay. He had shoulder surgery after the 2018 season and only played in 2 games last year. So he's going to need to take a backup job and show he can still sling the rock. He's going to need to take the Teddy Bridgewater approach. So, of course, if you don't remember, Teddy Bridgewater drafted, 2014? Maybe it was 2016. He was a first-round pick out of Louisville. Teddy was to the Minnesota Vikings. Did really good his first and second year, and then he tore his knee up. Just awful. But now, he took a couple backup jobs, succeeded enough, and he got like a $60 million contract with the Panthers, of all people, of all teams, to give an injury-riddled quarterback a chance to play. The Carolina Panthers did it to Teddy Bridgewater. So why couldn't they have keep Cam Newton there for 1 year just to make him stay healthy? Just I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. So we'll see. He's going to need to sign. If I was him, I would sign with a team that has an injury-prone starter, even though Cam is sort of injury-prone, but still, he's going to need to try to get his shot somehow. Or a veteran that might potentially leave next year or the year after. That should be his top priority. But, of course, that's easier said than done. There's nothing Cam can do when teams don't come calling him. There's no reason they shouldn't be calling him, though. So, really, Cam can go pretty much wherever he wants. Some of the teams that would be optimal for him, of course, would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he'd be really successful there. Come in, replace Ben after a year or two. If he's successful enough, the Steelers could draft another quarterback while Cam Newton's their starter, then mentor that guy, and then Cam could be 35 years old and maybe retire and be just fine. Also, the New England Patriots. This would be another good destination for Cam Newton. He could come in, help Jarrett Stidham, be a great starter, and if the Patriots succeed, way to go. They win another Super Bowl or still stay at the top. If they don't, then he can come in and still provide that mentorship that young quarterbacks need. Even the Washington Redskins, he could go back to Ron Rivera and help out our young man, Dwayne Haskins, and just be another presence in that quarterback room. So as to not rush Dwayne Haskins along. These could all be viable options for our man Cam Newton, and I think they would all be great. I would really like to see Cam Newton get one more shot just to show that he still has that lightning in a bottle, that first round overall pick, that Auburn talent, that national championship talent he has. Because Cam Newton was a great, fun, entertaining quarterback to watch. So I hope y'all liked this episode. If you did, make sure you smash that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you share. I have really enjoyed doing these past two podcasts. And next week's podcast is going to be pretty fun and also pretty not fun, as I'll be taking an in-depth look at the Houston Texans. Of course, my team, Houston Texans. And we're gonna see just what I think of them and how well they're gonna do. So we're gonna look at the head coach, the GM, the offensive line, the quarterback, the wide receiver, the defensive line, the safeties. We're gonna look at them all. Really gonna take an in-depth look at them. This has been Wade with Tongues Cat Gaming and Sports. Don't forget to be God above all. I'll see you next time.